would grab the fire with their hands. With their hands they would clasp the flames of the fire, and with that they would cleanse the people who were asked to approach, to come forward and present themselves for healing, for cleansing, to be strengthened by the flames of the fire as they were clasped by the Mayas. The Mayas were there. The year was 2004 and the place was Quito, Ecuador, at the second Continental Encounter of Indigenous Nations and Pueblos, the second Continental Encounter in Quito in 2004. And as the people approached and received their blessings and their healing from the flames of the fire in the hands of the Maya, they were given charcoals. They were told that they would be allowed to take the charcoal of the sacred fire home to their families, to their communities, to their nations, to their confederacies, to their territories, to their sacred sites. And there, that element of the spirit of our nationhood that we share on Mother Earth would be taken care of and also be taking care of us. And that was in 2004 at the second Continental Encounter of Indigenous Nations and Pueblos in Quito, Ecuador. But that was already, by that time, 14 years later. It was 14 years later because the first Continental Encuentro Continental Encounter took place in 1990. It also took place in Quito. We were called to Quito in 1990 to participate in the first Continental Encounter of Indigenous Nations, Pueblos, and organizations, and there was where the sacred fire was first lit. That represented, no, it didn't represent it, it presented itself to us once again as it had in the beginning of our nationhood of Abya Yala, the entire continent, under the tradition and the prophecy and the history of the eagle and the condor, the Kundur Anka Pachakutik, the turning and the returning of the cycles of our history through the suns of the horizons that we live upon Mother Earth since the beginnings of time immemorial. The second Encuentro Continental after Quito in 1990 took place 3 years later in Quito, Ecuador, in Temuaya, Mexico, among the Otomi. The ancient Yan-Yu Confederacy hosted us there at the Centro Ceremonial Otomi in 1993 in the winter, in the fall winter. And from there the determination was made together that we would move forward. We had had 2 encounters and it had come time now to move forward. And through all of that, the journeys of the sacred staffs of the eagle and the condor, caretaken by peace and dignity, caretaken with dignity and peacefully traversing the entire continent, had also begun their journey. So that 7 years later, in the year 2000, we organized the first Continental Summit of Indigenous Nations and Pueblos. At the continental level, we worked for those 7 years to put together the first summit, which took place at Teotihuacan in Mexico once again in 2000. And there was the Treaty of Teotihuacan. The Ochete Saku and 7 council fires led the way. They brought out the sacred chanupa and we put it together with a ceremonial at the foot of those sacred temples in Teotihuacan, 2000, the first summit. The second summit occurred then back in Quito. That is when the Mayas with the flames of the fire allowed it to unfold once again. And as those charcoals were carried and brought home. Now we are at the third summit, which was in Guatemala. Guatemala in the year 2007. We arrived there at Ixinche for the third Continental Summit of Indigenous Nations and Organizations, which moved again to the fourth summit in 2009. In 2009, it was then the fourth summit, which took place in Puno, Peru, in the highlands of the Lake Titicaca, 2009. And so the fifth summit is here now. We are here now. The call was made, and we have answered the call. And we are now here in the territories of the Cauca, of the Consejo Regional Indigena del Cauca, in their home territories, hosted by the ONIC, the Indigenous National Organization of Colombia. We are here in Colombia at the 5th Continental Summit of Indigenous Nations and Pueblos. Along the way, there is a convening here on the floor now of the indigenous youth at the continental level. That's Edwin from Ecuador speaking now. On the other side of the assembly, the Indigenous Women, Continental Indigenous Women Summit are also simultaneously taking place. And in the tents on the side, the Continental Network of Indigenous Communicators and Media of Abya Yala is also coming forward. These elements will re-emerge once again, braided together with all of our hopes and dreams on Wednesday, when the full summit will have its first plenary session at the continental level of Abya Yala once again. But again, Huitlalpan, Sem Huitlalpan, any piece of Mother Earth that she's lying there that happens to be above the level of the sea, of what can be seen above the level of the waves of the sea, that is part of the Tlalpan that we say. And the largest of them, they call the Huitlalpan. But they're all tied together. It's not like they were ever really separated at all. It is the grandmother sea who always bound them with the spirit of the waters together, and which also once again are falling upon us in the rains that are coming, that have been here and are due to return soon at the 5th Continental Summit of Indigenous Nations here in the Cauca, Colombia. It's 2013, but in actuality, it's 325 days. 325 days since the turn and return of the Pachacutic of the winter solstice that just occurred and is about to occur again. But here we are. This is Resguardo, speaking to you from the Cauca in Colombia at the 5th Continental Indigenous Summit. Hi.